All right, everyone. Good evening and welcome to Boss's 2023 anniversary tasting with Moonlight Meadery / Over the Moon Farmstead / Hidden Moon Brewing. I'm going to be hosting and trying to razzle dazzle, no pun intended here, with
no pun intended with the
yeah. On no pun intended there. We're going to try and razzle dazzle everyone here with Michael Fairbrother, owner and proprietor, head mead master, and chief of all things mead here on the East Coast. Michael, welcome. Thank you for coming out tonight.
It's absolutely my pleasure. I mean, I've been a home brewer. I'm a lifetime home brewer since 1995, and when I went pro, the American Homebrewers Association or the Brewers Association asked if I wanted to give up my lifetime membership. I said, I don't know if I'm going to make it as a brewer. So I'm going to hang on to that lifetime membership because I paid for that.
I love it. I love it. So tonight's first mead, we're actually going to dive right in here as we go, and we'll start with Razz What She Said, which is your canned mead, everyone.
So it's a session mead, so 6.7% ABV. How we make this mead is we start with almost a 14% ABV raspberry mead. So I make all my meads pretty much around 32 bricks to start with, so 32% sugar. We let it ferment down to about 14% ABV, and then we'll cut it with water so that we can get the lighter body, but we keep that and maintain that stronger mouthfeel that you'd get from making a big mead. So I like a light mead that tastes like a big mead, and the only way to really get that is to start strong and then lighten it up. Whereas if you start with a light mead, say 14, 15 bricks, you're going to have it really taste watery, and I don't want to have that.
No, that is wonderful. That it does. It has that thick mouth feel like you would expect from a bigger mead, but doesn't beat you down, like that's, and the fizz and all of that, the carbonation there, that's nice, Michael. That's really nice.
Yeah, so sorry, go ahead.
No, I like that it's not super sweet like most meads, where you're like, man, you get that big punch of sugar or like all the sweetness from the mead, and then you get the rest of it. This is really, really good.
Yeah, I was talking at the International European Mead Makers Conference last year to talk about balance of sweetness and perception of flavors. And one of the key things people need to understand is there's a lot to it. It's not just the actual sweetness of the finishing mead, but the pH, what the alcohol level is, because all those three pieces can control how it perceives for the consumer tasting that mead. And with carbonation, you can even lighten it up more because that gives it yet another, if you think about Coca-Cola, for example, it's sweeter than any mead I make. But the reason it doesn't taste quite so sweet is because of that carbonation, giving you that carbonic acid, kind of pull it into perspective. So that's why with like our session meads like Sam Strawberry or the Razz What She Said, we're banking on that effervescence to really pull in all the flavors. Although if you were to taste the mead that we make that's not diluted, it's called Caress. It's a very sweet raspberry mead, and it's really full, really rich, beautiful, like a dark chocolate. But I wanted to be able to have something that was kind of more sessionable and enjoyable on a hot summer day. And because we had customers telling us they were blending our meads with like Prosecco and giving it a little carbonation, and I'm like, I can add water and sell it for just as much. Yeah, call me a businessman, but I like where you're going with that. But
no, that works out really well. As we continue to sip and enjoy, so this is you said 15 bricks.
So it started at 32 bricks, so 32% sugar, fermented to 14% alcohol. So that took away 28 bricks, and then we cut it down with water. Right. So bricks is a really easy way for professionals to think about how they're making their meads, and because of the math. So half the bricks taken away goes to CO2 production, half goes to alcohol production. So if I start with 32 and I take away 28, that tells me how much is left, which is like seven bricks. So then 7 bricks cut in half is about 3.5 bricks of sweetness left once we're all said and done. But it still gets me that 7% alcohol, even though it started at such a big number.
All right.
And
And
we use the
how much
same-
raspberry is that?
It's a lot. So we use
Even on like a scaled down version, like if you were to do it in a homebrew batch, like a 5-gallon batch or a 10-gallon batch, that's got to be what, 15, 20 pounds of berries?
yeah, we use about average 6 pounds per gallon. So yeah, it's you can't get the flavor without going for it, right? So I can cheat a little bit because I can use concentrate, but the best way you can do it is with just fresh raspberries. And I've met homebrewers over the years that have sieved out the seeds from the raspberries, so they don't get that tartness from the seeds of the raspberries. Not a bad idea if you're a home brewer. It's certainly way overkill, and as a commercial guy, I can make that work. But we buy raspberry concentrate at 65 bricks, so it's about a 4-to-1 concentrate, and we use 50 gallons for a 500-gallon batch. So it's 200 gallons of juice at pretty much normal strength for a 500-gallon batch. So it's pretty significant amount of raspberry that goes into it.
And you use the concentrate with the fruit as well?
No, for the vast majority of the meads, because we don't want to have the waste of the loss of the fruit, we go with concentrate. So there are several meads that we make. Wild is one of them, which we actually use blueberries, and we buy essentially 500 gallons worth of blueberries to make a 1,000-gallon batch. So 500 gallons of that batch is going to be wasted from the blueberry pulp and seeds and skins to make that batch. But you can't get that flavor without that. So the absolute best way you can make a mead is with fresh, ripe fruit. The challenge is, for a company my size now, that we can't afford to lose that much of a tank, right? So if I'm making, in this example, a 60-barrel batch of Razz What She Said, I can make that and I get 120 barrels of Razz What She Said, right? Because so I can start with 60 barrels fermented, then back add water to get to 120 barrels. So I can almost make double the capacity from the size vat that I need versus
higher gravity brewing techniques where you make the big beer and then you water it down to feed your.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. So instead of trying to what I've learned or taught myself over the years is that by doing it that way, you can control, like I know how to make big, strong meats. It's what I do all day long. So I'm already good at that. Right? So I want to stay at what I'm good at. And then, I want to understand the dynamics of how do I then cut it down to size and get it to be correct. And we had some challenges. I mean, the biggest challenge was learning how to make sure fermentation was arrested, so we didn't have cans bombing or exploding on people. And I nearly went out of business as I tried to figure out what I was doing wrong. But my calculations for the sulfites and sorbates was that I was off because I wasn't calculating the water and how that changed everything. So it took a significant amount of loss for me to figure out what on earth we were doing wrong and how to get a shelf stable product. Like nobody wants to sit around and see cans exploding when they're walking down a grocery aisle or in your warehouse or when you're judging meat for your die. And it's like, okay, take cover. It's a lot to learn. I mean, I'm still trying to work on my book, but it's been a slow progress, especially with the farmstead.
Indeed.
So this is unpasteurized, I'm assuming then.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So we do measure pH. We will adjust if we need to. So the closer your pH is to 4, the less likely you could ever stabilize it. So you want to be like a 3.2 to 3.7 for a final pH. And then you can actually sulfite and sorbate to get to, neutralizing your yeast. We do sterile filter, cross flow filter everything we make. It's a nominal filter. Nominal is very specific. It means it's average. So 0.2 micron average does not mean that every yeast cell is going to be gone when you're finished. And as most of you homebrewers should know, average is not good enough when you're dealing with yeast, and they will replicate and continue to wreak havoc in your worst possible nightmares as you try to go pro. So I've learned a lot the hard way. I've spent a lot of money on equipment, testing pH meters and the like. We've had a fairly stable system for the last, I should knock on wood, 8 years now. So, it's hard because, you think you know what you're doing because you've done it as a home brewer. Now I'm on my 28th year of home brewing, commercial brewing and mead making. And you get into a sense of complacency that you think, okay, well, I've done it this way for 12 years. How can this not possibly work? Well, if you don't understand the science behind it, it'll sneak up and hit you with a 2x4. And, our biggest vats now are 100 barrel size. So, making 100 vat size of Kurt's apple pie, which we did, 2 months ago now, that's $300,000 worth of product in one tank, right? So, that's
a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
My wife would kill me if she ever thought I was cutting a corner. Right. So I have to be very specific and very purposeful on what we do and why, and articulate it so that, as I'm not always the guy making them, that's now that my staff know what am I doing and why I'm doing it so that they can replicate it.